So today I've got the absolute pleasure of sitting down with Greg Horton, who I've known for a while. So Greg is currently the CTO of Fairstone, who are a technology-leveraged wealth management business, one of the fastest growing in the UK. Greg's an absolutely great guy, so can't wait to dive into this conversation. Greg, welcome. Thanks very much for taking the time out. The first question I wanted to ask you is a little bit about your leadership style and how would you describe yourself as a leader?
I would like to describe myself as somebody who's authentic, a bit of an open book, sometimes to my detriment, but I'm committed and hardworking, and I always put the interests of my team first, and then I always want to make sure we're pushing forward as a team for the benefit of the business and the end clients.
And when you say sometimes to your detriment, what do you mean by that?
I'm quite transparent in terms of what I'm trying to achieve, what I would like to achieve for my team, and also how I'm feeling or going about that. And sometimes that can be received in different ways by different people. And lots of people aren't open books. So therefore they could use some of that and play it to their own agenda, whereas I'm just very open. I just want to work in a collaborative way. And in my experience, that is, if everyone is on the same page, that's fantastic. But often that's not the case.
Yeah, it's almost people don't expect it, so it kind of catches them off guard a little bit, right? Do you get that sense sometimes?
I don't know if I find it caught people off guard, but I've certainly felt that people I've worked with in the past have withheld being as open as I have been. So it sort of becomes a bit of a one-way conversation rather than this is what I think, this is what you think, this is how we're going to work together, and this is how we're going to solve it. It can become a bit of, I'm absorbing what you're telling me, and I might use that in the future. But in my experience, the most successful teams, collaborative teams, be that in a project or a leadership team, or those teams where everyone's open, hearts on the sleeve to a certain extent, but you all absolutely are aligned to trying to achieve the same goals.
Yeah, and I guess it kind of dovetails into the conversation that we've had previously around servant leadership, right? And what is the meaning of servant leadership? How do you become a servant leader? I think a big aspect of that is focused around communication. But what do you see as the kind of core benefits? Because I know you really are focused around servant leadership within your organisation. What do you see as the core benefits of that?
Me personally, servant leadership style is unique to the individual, I think. So I would say I've experienced getting the most out of my teams by giving them the freedom and the trust to do what they know to be right. But I've equally made it my mission to remove obstacles and blockers and politics out of their way to enable them just to get on and do what they're good at. And therefore I find myself being a bit of an umbrella over my team, but that's not an umbrella that prevents people talking to my peers or my bosses. Absolutely, I'm open to that too, but it's for me to protect my team and shield them, if you like. So that's my job. That's how I just see that as my job, to protect my team and give them the tools to be successful. And if I do that, then they've got the autonomy, and then they become more engaged, and then that's ultimately how you start to create a high-performing team.
Of course, yeah. You make it sound very easy. So what is the kind of the flip side of that in terms of, when you are having those more challenging conversations around people that aren't necessarily developing as quickly as you may expect in this open kind of communication first style environment? How do you deal with that when you need to have those maybe more challenging conversations?
With peers or line managers, or?
I think more around the organisation underneath, because I guess when you're shielding people, is there a cost to that?
A quandary that I've had in the past is how much do you shield people versus let them be exposed and defend for themselves? Because ultimately part of defending and looking after yourself is part of what shapes you as an individual and then makes you stronger. So if you're protected, a bit like kids, if you protect your kids all the time, they're never going to know what the real world's like. But equally, just because you might have experienced something one way doesn't mean that's the best way for others to experience it. So it's a real balance, and I try to take the best bits of what I've learned through others, and I give that to other people, and I try and filter the things that actually I don't think are going to be conducive to a positive outcome, and I try and withhold them or protect people from those. That's just my style. I think if I can expose people to behaviours or scenarios that will help them individually develop and grow, then fantastic. But there are other things that I just think, actually, that's just going to be a waste of your time, or it's going to upset you, or it's going to slow you down. So if I can, I'll shield you from that.
And is there a personal cost to that? Do you then end up having to take slack yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So as I've progressed in my career, I've realised that I can see that more and more, and there's a balance between stepping in and protecting your team and being that servant leader at the cost of challenging a peer or another team. So sometimes it's absolutely the right thing to do, but other times, as I'm sort of going through my career, it's more a case of it's not one to pick. It's not a battle worth picking to a certain extent. It's more important to have the collegiate peer relationship absolutely intact, and then have informal conversations if there are things that are potentially needing to be adjusted. I think that's more important, to have a strong peer relationship built on trust and mutual sort of support, than it is to sort of dig in and protect your team at all costs. I think it's probably more important to have the peer network absolutely in place, and then go from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think as you were saying that, it kind of resonates with situations that I've had in the past, dealing with clients mainly. Obviously, our organisation's too small for this at the moment, really. But knowing when to escalate things and knowing when to just go, actually, this is something that I should try and deal with myself directly. And I think as I've progressed through my career, I've recognised that escalation point is the very, very last thing that you should do, right? But what I'm intrigued about is, given that you do have this very open style, and I know your team and I know how much they value you as their leader, does that mean that actually you get things kind of landing on your lap that sometimes you think, or have thought previously, well, maybe this doesn't really need to involve me? Do you get dragged into things more regularly, do you think?
Sometimes, but then that's an opportunity for me to work out why that's coming to me, and then how do I help the individual or individuals that should be deal with it in a constructive way that means there's a good outcome. So I'd rather things come to me that I can help with than not know about things and then something blows up, potentially.
Of course. It's that open communication, right? And it does make a big difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So I encourage people to try and come, people in my team especially, to try and come to me and talk to me, share things. I'll ask a lot of sort of cathartic questions to try and draw people into a conversation. Team meetings, whoever's quiet, right, draw them in. I've got a real mixed bag, especially in technology. You have a real mixed bag of personalities. So you have introverts, extroverts, you have people at all ends of the spectrum, if you like. And I think it's my job as the leader of a technology function, especially, to make sure that everyone's got a voice and everyone's been heard. So I make a point of doing that.
Nice. It's I think it's so important, and look, it shows as well, because I know you've had people that have followed you from one job to the next, right? And that type of loyalty, I think, is quite unique for leaders at your sort of level. But it's nice to see. So, in terms of, I guess, the values that underpin your style, what are you? What is Greg Horton? What do you stand for?
I would like to think I'm honest, I'm ambitious, but I believe a lot in integrity and respect, and I believe in hard work and putting the team first. So actually, if someone in the team, if I'm not pulling my weight in the team, I'm putting my utmost effort into the team and pushing forwards, then someone else is likely having to pick up the slack somewhere. So we all have our off days and things like that, but ultimately I expect everybody to be pushing as hard as I am, and I will never ask someone to do something that I won't do myself. So it's about being one team. I'm very comfortable sitting in and amongst the team, pros and cons, but I don't like to sort of position myself as someone who's not equal within the team. We all have different roles, obviously, but I want to make sure that personally, I'm working as hard as I can with the tools I've got. I'm learning as much as I can, and ultimately I'm helping the people around me, I'm helping them and their careers, they're collectively helping drive our company forward, which is therefore going to improve the profits of the firm, and the shareholders and the end clients are ultimately going to be benefited. But also it gives me the opportunity to provide a quality of life for my family that is really important to me.
Yeah, and I suppose that last bit was that was what I was quite intrigued about. You know, what drives you? Because there's quite a lot in there, right? And you talk about ambition, you talk about work ethic, and then you also talk about this kind of this desire to want to do things in the right way by the people that are around you and by the firms that you work for, right? And all of that kind of rings true. But what do you think is the one kind of thing that really pushes you? Where does it come from? Because clearly this has been quite a consistent theme throughout your career, right? You've had a very authentic style, and you can see it. Where does that come from, do you think?
Well, I've got a very impatient, hard-working, successful father who's basically, I think his work ethic has been drilled into me. He came from very humble beginnings, and absolutely, it's about working hard. Dream big, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve, but you've got to put the hard work in to get there. And I absolutely believe in that. And there was a phrase that I quite like: "Fake it till you make it." Yeah. And someone said to me the other day, "How do you know when you've made it?" And I said to him, "Well, actually, the fact that you're asking me that question, I think you probably actually made it in your own way." Yeah. And we had a really good conversation. And he says, "I think you're right." He said, "Because I can't wait to get home, have a glass of wine, and be with my wife and my family. And that's all I want in life." Nice. So I think for me, there's just an element of, I just want to keep pushing myself until a point where I think I've had enough.
Yeah.
I don't want to push any further, or I'm not learning anymore.
Yeah.
Or I'm not adding value.
Yeah.
To the business that I'm employed for, but also the people around me. So I'm constantly pushing myself, because if I think I can do more, then I would feel I'm probably letting myself down by not trying to do more, which probably comes back to some of the theme, the questioning is what drives me. I think I want to be the best version of myself that I can be, and a byproduct of that is helping others be the best they can be. It's driving the company forward that I work for and being as profitable and as ethical as they can be. And then it's also obviously providing for my family. So it's like there's three big areas there.
Combination of those things. I think, yeah, what you've just described to me, I done a behavioural test recently, and it talked about the concept of having these behavioural saboteurs. And basically these are the things that underpin your behaviours and what you do. But you know, you can look at those things in one way or another. You can look at those things and think, well, that drives negative behaviour for me personally, or you can look at those things that actually, how can I use that and embrace that and that help me to be better at what I do? I think that's a good example of that, right? You've got this kind of hard-working, tenacious kind of behaviour that then is driving you in the right way to do the right things.
Yeah, I guess I like to prove people wrong.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so, in terms of that's obviously personal values, but in terms of what you try and instill in the team, does it kind of follow the same line in terms of set of values and what you expect, and what are your non-negotiables in terms of the people that are around you, or are there other things that filter?
Yeah, I would say broadly it follows the same path. I just want people to be open, honest, collaborative. You know, if you've got a problem, speak about it, but be professional, be balanced, be pragmatic. If you've got an issue, come with an open mind that you're prepared to discuss and think about a solution. Yeah. It's easy to throw bombs. It's harder to pick up a problem and try and solve it. So absolutely, you've got to be part of the team that's pushing forward rather than on the side throwing stones. That's a non-negotiable for me. You can throw stones at me for a while, but then eventually you've got to get on the bus, so to speak. You've got to be part of the solution, or we're going in a direction that isn't necessarily for you. So I can be clear and act with conviction when necessary, but the majority of my leadership style is absolutely about how do we move forward, how do we improve, how do we, in a joined up way, move forward as a business.
Cool. And so, talking a little bit about the role that you're in now with Fairstone, obviously this is a big move for you, right? Going into a smaller PE-backed business. What were the kind of critical things that you were thinking about when you were making that transition from what is probably slightly more comfortable corporate life to founder-led, PE-backed, fast-paced? What were you kind of weighing up there?
It is smaller, but it's only by headcount 50% smaller, but we've only been going 15 years versus 250 years. So there are some definite synergies between the organisations, and I think the entrepreneurial spirit and the speed at which Fairstone are growing, led by my boss Lee Hartley, the CEO and founder, and his just sheer drive to do the right thing for the client, the end client, drive client experience, drive advisor efficiencies to ultimately for the betterment of the shareholders and the wider business too. But it was just really clear vision, really clear business strategy, really clear what was expected from technology to underpin that journey and that business strategy. It was a compelling opportunity. I'd been at my previous place for 3.5 years, and I was ready for more responsibility. And the opportunity came at the right time for me, and I decided I'll test myself. I'll go and do this again, and essentially that's exactly what we're doing.
And it feels like now you're closer to, or you've got a bigger sphere of influence. Is that fair?
Yeah, definitely. So from anything to do with change, technology, buck stops with me. The expectation is I'm in control. Things are working. Things are moving forwards. We're operating within budget. We're aligned to strategy. Everything is collegiate with what everyone else across the executive team in the business requires. That's the expectation I have of myself. That's what my boss, I believe, has of me. And it's just about making sure we keep incrementally moving forward.
And do you feel like you've kind of been exposed to new things since you've been in the role in a different environment, or is it an extension of everything that you've done in the past, do you think?
It's definitely new in terms of the openness of the conversation about what the business is doing, what we need to do as a senior leadership team. Some tough decisions maybe that are required, but ultimately articulating what technology is going to do to drive this firm forward is with me, and that's what I'm now doing on a regular basis. And that's different. That's really refreshing, and not many companies have a CTO or a member of technology sat on the top team, and we absolutely have that at Fairstone, and it's really adding value.
Okay. That is interesting, isn't it? I think you're right. It's starting to happen more, but it's a bit of a journey that a lot of organisations are on. It's clearly a good thing. And is it because Fairstone really are kind of seeing technology as an instrumental driver in improving that customer service, customer experience that you talked about?
Yeah, I believe so. I think Fairstone, we're a progressive organisation, always have been, and I think we recognise that as a technology leveraged organisation, you can only truly optimize the use of technology, existing and also emerging tech, if you've got somebody who's running that function, sitting with that executive team and advising them, as well as being tasked with the action to make it happen.
Yeah, and I know for you personally coming into this role, one of the exciting aspects was being able to kind of shape the structure and the operating model within tech and change. So I just wanted to kind of delve into that a little bit and understand from your perspective, what are the kind of critical aspects of a modern technology organisation to support a growing business? How do you see that being structured, and what's absolutely critical, the capabilities that you have in there?
I think you need to be clear on what your strategy is. So strategy for me being, what are they say, 3 to 5 things that you're going to do, why you're going to do them, when are you going to do them, and then how you're going to compare and contrast what you've done versus where you were, and therefore evidence the investment that you've put in. And once you're clear on those strategic imperatives, if you like, strategic objectives, it's then about making sure you've got a team underneath it that can change the organisation to take you there, but also support it and run. So having a modern operating model, a modern organisation structure in technology is essentially having technology operations, infrastructure, cybersecurity especially, having a change capability in the middle, portfolio management, and project governance, and then having software engineering and digital is the way I would position it. One of the biggest challenges, though, in every organisation, every role I've been in, and it's the same. It's been the same at Fairstone, has been just getting a prioritised list of things we want to do, and then aligning the order in which you tackle those things in line with the capacity that you've got to do it within the team. It sounds quite straightforward when you say it, but actually that's the hardest thing I find in any company I've been in, and it's just expectation management between what everyone wants around the organisation, certainly in the senior teams, and then how do you fit that into a viable delivery plan that you can genuinely stand behind and get over the line. Generally, there's always more demand than supply. Who goes first is often a bit of a challenge. So putting in place a practical, what I would call a portfolio management office, a change function that helps to categorize, prioritize what projects or changes should be done, and then making sure they're done for the right reasons, in the right way, at the right time. That's one of the big things for any operating model. It's just all about change. It's getting control of the demand, and then making sure you've got the appropriate level of supply and that you can execute that over a period of time.
Right. And I guess where you are now, well, from what it looks like from my perspective, the change is kind of much more smaller, incremental, but ever evolving and fast-paced change. Is that the type of environment that you prefer to be in, rather than the kind of big multi-year kind of complex?
Yeah, definitely. I think even like big multi-year complex programs are, if they've not already moved this way, they're all moving towards scaled agile delivery, which is ultimately about breaking big deliverables down into increments, and the increment really should be no more than 3 months. So what we've been doing at Fairstone, and the way we've approached it, is we've got almost like a 20-week sprint plan. We've forecast that 12 months or so beyond, but the absolute focus is on delivering value, building on that value, learning, and then going again and going again. And that's reaping rewards because people can see the outputs. The organisation is then the users of the systems, the advisors, and the people that are serving our clients are getting more and more tools at their disposal on a regular basis, and therefore we're benefiting and adding tools to the users.
Yeah, which is obviously the end goal, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so, where was the kind of tech capability and the change capability at Fairstone when you joined, and how's that culture changed since you've been in the organisation?
So Fairstone's been on a fantastic journey over the past 15 years, and over the past 8 years, we've built in-house our own proprietary back office system with automated data feeds to lots of the big product providers and platform providers in the UK. So it's a fantastic achievement what's been achieved by the team, because most organisations just go and buy off-the-shelf back office systems, which cost a lot of money, and you can't tailor them because you're just essentially stuck with their decisions and their roadmap. So we've built our own, and we've deliberately tailored it to our own internal acquisition process, but also we've been able to cater for changes that we want to do internally. So the team that we've had that have built that and been on that journey are still with us today, and the roles they are doing are either similar or just different, because as an organisation, as we're growing, we're able to give people the opportunity to do more. So what I would say is, rather than the focus being primarily on the building of the proprietary back office solution, we're now in a position where we are able to look at 3, 4, or 5 things concurrently, as opposed to we've just been focused on one thing. So as a result of that, we need to then therefore have different types of disciplines. So rather than people who can do many things, we want specialist roles in digital, in full stack development, in project or delivery management. So as we're growing, seeds or shoots of new tech capabilities are emerging, and we're making sure that within budget, within what we can absorb, we are organically growing a tech capability, ultimately what we believe will be able to challenge any of our competitors and hopefully, go beyond them.
Leapfrog. That's really exciting. And so when you say growing organically, how much of the focus is on bringing in kind of fresh talent, but kind of developing them from the ground up?
Fairstone itself has got a rich history of partnering with universities, bringing graduates in, teaching, training, coaching people, especially in the business accounting, financial management space. And then people have a fantastic opportunity ahead of them to become power planners, advisors, and beyond. And in the tech space, that's something we're now starting to embrace. So we've recently signed a strategic partnership with the School of Computing at Newcastle University. So we've created our own career framework. So we've got technical pathways now. So if someone were to join our team, then there's an opportunity to move through the ranks over 2, 3, 4 year period. It's a balance. Any team that I've ran, it's a balance of nurturing and developing the existing team. It's about bringing in experience and talent, but it's also about creating an engine room for growth and seeding the team with the next generation of individuals as well. So if you do that, you essentially end up with a really strong set of individuals, and people can hopefully fulfill all of their aspirations, ambitions within Fairstone because of the opportunities we've got and as we're growing. And people can either move sideways or progress through the different frameworks that we put in place.
It just makes so much sense. And I think what's important there as well is that one can't really act without the other, right? So you can't just grow the engine if you haven't got the right experienced talent in the organisation already. Yeah. Because otherwise those people quickly kind of run out of...
Yeah, exactly. So we've made a decision in the past 6 months. We brought in 2 junior software engineers. One of the senior engineers has taken more time than most to support the individuals and get them up to speed, but we absolutely see the value the guys are already adding, not just in terms of technically and what they're contributing to the delivery of new items on our roadmap, but just culturally and their perspective on the world and how things are evolving. It's just nice to have a diverse, different sort of a team made up of diverse different individuals. That's ultimately one of the big benefits as well.
Yeah, and it really doesn't take long, does it? With the right nurturing, the right training and the right guidance, after 6 months, 1 year, especially 2 years, all of a sudden they start to become part of the furniture almost, right? And you can start to rely on these individuals.
Absolutely.
And I'm saying that from experience because it's the same in our organisation. And you touched on it there. You touched on kind of they're probably in tune with the developments that are happening in the technical world, right? And clearly we're all very aware of things like AI at the moment and the impacts that could have on various industries. But for you as a technology leader within wealth management, what do you see as the emerging technologies that could potentially disrupt the industry?
Well, it's a hot topic at the minute with Chat GPT and Open AI. So there are definitely lots of applications for artificial intelligence in the business that can really drive operational improvement, excellence. I think it's about, for me, there's probably 3 golden rules if you're looking to apply Chat GPT or an equivalent AI into an enterprise context. And that would be, the first one would be making sure you're finding or focusing on the right problem. It's about implementing the solution in an end-to-end system. And then it's about making sure you build in security around the AI. So just in terms of the finding the right problem, you want to start small. You want to focus on a particular problem that, when solved, will add visible, tangible value, and it will make the solution stick, and then people will buy into it. I think from what I understand and I've seen is AI really has the potential to supercharge the decision-making process. So if it's implemented, the solution is implemented at the right point in a decision flow, it can really amplify the benefits of the decisions that get made. And then just security. There are lots of techniques around that can help make the risks more visible and controllable that could come from AI. And so sort of, I guess, 3 practical examples. So there's a phrase I quite like. It's called decision intelligence. So this is the application of machine learning to move away from decisions based on data to decisions based on understanding. So if you think about a typical management dashboard, it's lots of data manipulated in such a way that it sort of makes sense. But you still, as a human, you've got to interpret that data, and you've got to be able to then make a decision based on interpretation. Whereas if you've used machine learning and an AI solution, that can automatically generate the recommended decisions that you should be making based on the data and the trends that have come to produce it. Yeah. So it's a step forward. So you're still the human, the senior manager, the executive is still required to make the decision, but it's been augmented, and that's really powerful if added in the right way. Chatbots are the face of AI. That's something I've been using for quite some time. So internally, policy documents, procedural documents, you can point your AI solution at all of that, put the bot on the front, and essentially you've got a 24/7, 365 Q&A facility for all of your staff, or possibly even auditors, whether you go that way, I don't know.
Yeah.
But a real practical example recently, one of my software developers, he asked Chat GPT to create him a C# function in a .NET Core framework that would return a money-weighted return performance calculation. And he just created it for him.
Really?
And then we've now incorporated that into our back office proprietary solution.
Wow.
So there's some real hands-on examples where it can just literally be an extra pair of hands.
Of course.
But there's also real management, strategic insight applications that can help you make a decision.
Yeah.
And it might be which is the worst bad decision that you've got to make, because you've got lots of constraints, but the AI can do that for you. So I think so long as as an organization, you pick the right solution for you and you aim for the right problem, and you scale it with the capacity that you've got and the budgets that you've got, then there's absolutely opportunities.
Of course. It's interesting that you talk a lot about, when you talk about the application, you talk a lot about internal applications rather than client-facing applications. And, I would assume that would be the case in an industry like yours, wealth management, right? Because I know as a customer, there's this kind of thing about talking to bots, isn't there? You'd rather talk to a human, especially when someone's managing your...
Yeah, I mean, I was talking quite sort of colloquially, if you like, about where we are as an organisation. We would absolutely focus on transforming and continuing to improve our internal capabilities, because ultimately we're a technology leverage, but we're a people business.
Yeah.
So we want our advisors talking to their clients all the time. And the more technology can help the advisors make better decisions and better recommendations to the clients, the better and the more successful we are. So from our perspective, that's where we would focus our energy and efforts. Other organizations may try to automate the communication process between their clients, but that's not for us.
Of course.
We're a people-led business.
Yeah, I mean, look, from what I understand and from my own personal perspective as someone who can put themselves in the shoes of a consumer of the products that you offer, I think it's the right decision.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then I guess going back to you for a moment, in terms of your kind of medium to long-term goals, if you look at where you're at in your career right now, it's a great position to be in, right? As you said earlier, sitting as part of the leadership team, executive leadership team, fast-growing, really exciting firm with lots and lots to offer. Where do you see yourself going next? What's your kind of longer-term ambitions?
I see myself here. I see myself at Fairstone, and I joined on the basis there was a 10-year plan, and the team I was running, the very large team I was running in my previous place, my expectation is that I will use all of the learnings I've got from running bigger teams, FTSE regulated firms with lots of regulation. We will apply the best bits of those experiences to Fairstone as we grow, and we will learn, and we won't apply the things that don't add value and that just get in the way. We'll make pragmatic, proportionate decisions around risk, but we will absolutely keep focused on improving the advisor's experience, the end client, and we'll just completely keep the business strategy and the technology strategy completely aligned. So yeah, that's where I intend to be.
So obviously, looking at your career trajectory today, you've had this constant ability to push yourself forward, and you've constantly been pushing your boundaries, and that's pretty evident in the way that you've progressed. So from where you are now, with the potential growth of the business, what's exciting in terms of the development of your own skills and the progression of your own career?
I guess what's exciting is the ability to take the learnings from the journey that I've had in all these different organizations, making sure we apply the best bits of those learnings to create the optimal delivery team, the optimal technology team, and that will end up partly being the fuel that really helps us to accelerate and continue the growth of the organization. We will apply modern tech, AI, digital. We will use technology in a way that really helps us achieve the business strategy, not just for the sake of putting something in. We are very commercial, more commercial than any other organization I've ever worked at. So we are absolutely laser focused on what we're spending our money on, why we're spending it, and how is that going to help the advisors, the clients, and the enterprise value. So I think a combination of these things, the hugely acquisitive growth, and how we can use technology to optimize, possibly even automate some of the infrastructure technology acquisitions that we've not done automatically in the past, but there's an opportunity to use tech again there. So personally, there's loads of growth opportunities in how we could apply technology to just help this company, my company, Fairstone, grow faster and quicker. But equally, just being part of a senior leadership team that is all working absolutely collaboratively. We're all in it together. We're all measured by the same things. We've all got the same shared objectives. It just means that we're united, we're unified, and we're pushing forward as a team. And if there is a problem, then we help each other, because ultimately we're all being measured in the same way. So it's in our interest, it's in everyone's interest in the organisation to work together.
Yeah, so you win, they win, vice versa. Yeah, sounds good. And the last question for you. So if you could think back all the way to the beginning of your career, and you knew something then that you know now, what would that one thing be?
I wouldn't necessarily think back to just the beginning of my career. I'd think back to different moments of my career and nudges that I've had that have potentially knocked me in a different direction. And I would say that those knocks are positive, because ultimately, in order to really change direction and go where you want to go, you need to change direction. And lots of people don't want to change direction. They're quite comfortable going the same direction. I'm not. It's just in my nature to keep moving forwards and learning and pushing for more. And sometimes that push can result in a nudge. And that nudge, in my experience, even though it might not feel it sometimes at the time, if you embrace it for what it is, it opens up another door, or it pushes you into another lane, and that lane then enables you to go further and do something different or achieve what you want to achieve. So I think it's trying to make sure that, I guess the advice I would say is it's not going to be plain sailing. If you want to do things over and above the sort of the steady climb, then you be prepared for choppy water sometimes, but approach it with humility, with transparency, and I think then you can't go wrong. You just got to be ambitious, keep going, to try and do the right thing by yourself and others, but be prepared to get nudged by people every now and again.
Nice, embrace it.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you very much.
That was a really great conversation with Greg. I think what was fascinating about that and exciting about it was, he talks about his role right now with such passion and enthusiasm. And you can tell that he's working for a leader that he massively buys into, that massively inspires him, within a business that's got an absolute crystal clear laser focus on their goals and a relentless drive to meet those goals. For me personally, it kind of just makes me want to go back into my own business, back into my own day job, and absolutely get at all of the things that I'm trying to do. And it also makes it really clear that everything that you want, that you're after, is within your reach, which I think is really, really exciting.